Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got another one for you. Let's talk about the art of effective marketing and the power of influencer collaboration and how that can impact your strategic communication for your brand success. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to dive in the world of marketing and brand communication with a seasoned marketing communication professional with over a decade of experience. She's here to share her insight and secrets to success, whether you're a marketer, brand manager, or just curious about the world of influencer marketing. Today's episode, we're going to explore the journey from working with global brands like L'Oreal to founding her boutique marketing communications agency, called Mischka Agency, by the way. We'll uncover her passion for crafting powerful communication strategies that elevate brand image and drive business growth. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Miss Yuliya Gorenko. All right, Yuliya, welcome to the program.
Hey, I love the intro. So much energy.
That's what it's all about. I mean, branding, communication, we gotta have that energy, at least in our videos, to get people pumped. You ready?
Yep, let's do this.
All right, let's do this. Very first question I always ask everybody who comes on the show is here to promote something, sell something, they're doing something to grow their businesses. What is that for you?
Oh, well, so I'll probably just open up with a brief background of who I am. I've been in the marketing communication space for over a decade, as you said, and I've worked with over 30 brands, I think, so far in multiple industries, from consumer goods, retail, software, mobile apps, enterprise software. So like a pretty versatile background. And for years, I've worked on the brand side. So before starting my own agency, I worked as a brand marketer, as a public relations manager on the brand side. And I kind of know all the ins and outs of running brand marketing campaigns on the brand side. So at this point of my life, I'm kind of leveraging all this experience to now run my own influencer marketing agency and help other brands grow.
Who are you going after here? Because I feel that we're in a really unique marketing age where almost anyone can be an influencer to some type, depending on whether your audience can convert or not. Anybody can create content and post at scale. Who's the target audience here? Who can best benefit from your services?
I'm a strong evangelist of influencer marketing, and I believe that absolutely any brand can utilize influencers. Just as you say, anyone with the audience that, the person that has certain influence is an influencer. And I kind of hate this traditional perception of the influencer marketing niche when sometimes people think about those Instagram fashion and lifestyle influencers, but it's just so much more. Like, for instance, I worked with a lot of B2B companies, like enterprise software, companies in the education space, companies in the cybersecurity space, and the potential for influencer partnerships in this area is also incredible. Like, let's say you run an enterprise cybersecurity solution, so you still can work with those cybersecurity experts, partner with them, and collaborate with them so that they endorse your solution within their niche. I'm a big believer in the power of influencer marketing, and I feel like any brand, any marketer can find find the right approach to leverage and influencers for their brand growth.
Let me ask you about your background. In 10 years of marketing experience, you started a boutique. Walk me through what those 10 years brought you. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, I can do marketing until they get into the space and they have to show results. Not always the easiest thing to do. Walk me through those 10 years. What's your background like as a marketer?
Yeah, I like to say that I don't like shortcuts. So like I actually like kind of grinded and hustled over the years to kind of, get to the space where I am now. It's interesting. So my very first job, I got an internship actually at L'Oreal, the big cosmetic corporations that runs like over 30 global cosmetic brands. And over 4 years there, I grew from an intern to the head of the PR and digital department. I worked with their mass market brands. I worked with their luxury brands. So they kind of operate in, different market niches, kind of covering all cosmetic needs out there. Throughout these years, it was an incredible experience where it makes me kind of realize how old I am, because like at that point, a lot of things that we did were kind of limited to, let's say, print media buying, or like the very early age of like digital advertising, and I was actually one of the first people back then at my company to start working with influencers, because I was very young and curious, and I kind of saw this booming growth of the social media. And I saw those people who, post those product reviews on Instagram or on YouTube. And I remember I approached my manager at that time, and I'm like, hey, I feel like there's a lot of potential here. Why don't we send some products to those influencers? And at that time, I remember that my manager was kind of like, you already have a lot on your plate. Are you sure you want to do that? And as I say, I was just very young and very like passionate and curious. So I'm like, I want to give it a try. And I remember I started to build those relationships with some of the, social media influencers. And probably within 6 months, the company started to realize that, oh my God, that's like the future. There's just so much potential out there. And I was kind of leading the influencer program for the brand at that time. And since then, I pivoted from consumer goods. I left the beauty world and pivoted to software. So I got a job in a software companies, and they specifically they hired me to build the influencer program for them. So for me, it was also a very interesting experience how you can leverage those influencers to market, software solutions, to market at that time I worked with an app. So how influencer marketing can be a very powerful channel for mobile user acquisition. So I kind of kept learning as I worked with those different brands and different industries, and sort of explored all aspects of influencer marketing, because as I say, it's definitely not only limited to those Instagram influencers who post lipstick reviews, right? It can be an expert in in cybersecurity who speaks on conventions. It can be a well-respected educator or journalist that your brand can collaborate and make this person your brand ambassador. So there's just so much potential. And I like to say that every brand can work with an influencer, and your creativity is your only limit.
Now, you could have stayed working with a company, but you decided to venture off on your own and build your own agency. That's not the easiest thing for a lot of people to do. Luckily, you've had a lot of experience. You built up a lot of relationships. Walk me through your thought process of becoming your own entrepreneur.
I love this question actually. So I think that, when I look back, when I just started my career journey, when I was the intern, I think at that time, my biggest dream was to become a CMO. Like, I want to stay in this corporate world and I want to become an executive, a marketing executive. This was like my biggest dream. However, at some point of my career, I realized that, as you say, like, I started to build those connections and more people sort of started to approach me like, hey, we need to run, like a PR program, or we need help with influencer marketing. And I started to get approached by a variety of brands. And at some point I realized, like, why would I limit myself to working with or like working for one company if I can do sort of this consultancy work for multiple brands? And I've been thinking a lot about it recently. Like, we all live in a world where, like, we need to make money. The economy is getting crazier and crazier every year, right? And I feel like a lot of people feel that working a corporate job kind of gives you some sense of stability and comfort, and it's considered to be like less risky than like running your own business. However, if you give it another thought, I feel like, within like the last few years, we've seen all these layoffs, and like, is it really that stable, to work for a company, right? When like you can be let go absolutely any time. And I think, this showed us that everybody is disposable, literally. Like, you can lose your job just like overnight. And at the same time, when you're kind of like working for yourself, when you are working with multiple brands and companies, you are building up your clientele. So even if like one client decides to stop working with you for some reason, you still have like some other potential sources of income, some other potential clients. And also another part here, I think this is very interesting, is that when you work in the corporate world, you sort of have like a limit to how much you can make. And probably somebody would argue with me, because I know that if you're like a high-ranking corporate executive, you probably also have some fat bonuses and perks and this and that. But still, I feel like there is like a certain cap to how much you can make. And at the same time, if you're working independently, you can grow kind of like without any limitations. You can grow, you can hire more people and keep growing and getting more clients. So I am pretty much fascinated by that, and I decided to like give it a try. It happened sort of organically as kind of companies started to approach me. I never really like thought that I would be doing something like that, but I feel like when you build your expertise, when people get to know you, this is sort of like the very rational path,
You start to realize your value. You start to realize what you're offering these people, and they're not coming to your company, they're coming to you. There's a reason why
Right.
they're coming to you, and you're the expert in this space. Why not capitalize? And I agree with you, by the way. When you are working for somebody, there is a salary cap. There's the most that you're ever going to go there because you don't own the company. Whereas if you build it yourself, you are essentially building something with no cap. The only cap is how much time and effort you're willing to put into your company to build out the operations, the procedures, the things you need to do, replace yourself with certain maybe virtual assistants or systems and processes. So the growth phase on that is limitless. You can literally go as high as you want, or chill out at a certain level and say, look, this is my lifestyle business and this is all I really want to work with, a handful of clients, and I'm good. I'm happy. But the
That's a good
choice is
point as well.
ultimately
Yeah.
up to you. So let me ask you, there's a lot of people who think, you know what, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to get into this. I'm going to build my brand. I'm going to grow my company. But they don't really understand what marketing is, what branding is, what influencer marketing is. I mean, what advertising is. It all sounds like it's in the same umbrella, because it kind of is. But they need help. They need advice. What advice would you give to somebody starting a business today to help them build a brand and establish themselves so that they can acquire customers as easily as some of these other companies do?
Yeah, so I would say, if you are an entrepreneur that does not have a marketing background like I do, for example, I think there are a few things here to know. First of all, if you want to learn some basics of marketing, there is plenty of resource available online. Like, I don't want you to go and pay for some fancy online courses. I feel like there is just so much information that you can just Google and read some blogs and maybe find some ebooks. And, there is plenty of content available on YouTube, etc. So like, don't pay first. Like, try to see what you can get for free, because there's plenty of educational resources out there. Another thing that I want to point out is that, like, as I'm trying to build my own business, I start to realize the importance of delegating things. Like, you actually don't really need to be an expert on everything, right? Like, for example, some of my clients, I'm just going to give you one example. I work with a person who is a kind of like a beginner entrepreneur. So he's still in this startup phase. He's building an AI platform, which is like a very, very popular thing in 2024, I think. So, and he comes from like a data engineering background. He's like absolutely brilliant, smartest engineer, but he has nothing to do with marketing. And he actually doesn't need to know much. Like, he works with me, he kind of delegates this part to me. And I think it's just important to find somebody that you can trust and like just hire somebody who can help you. I know it might be problematic to find the resources to hire people, especially when you're just getting started. But still, like, you don't need to do everything all at once. I think another important part that I want people to understand when it comes to marketing, you really need to have like a very focused approach. Like, don't try to be like on all social media platforms, like pick the social media platform that works for your brand and like be successful on this particular platform, or like identify the tactics that work for you. Like, you don't need to do it all, like to do 20 podcasts and like run, all types of advertising that is possible out there. Like, try to be really strategic and kind of laser focused and understand like, okay, what is my key audience? Who am I targeting? And then how can I reach this audience? Like, what would be the right marketing channel for me to reach this audience? And what would be the right marketing message for me to reach this audience? So, for those people who are just getting started, as I say, don't try to do it all at once. Be very, very focused.
Yeah, there's so many shiny objects. Every single social platform feels like it has so many people on it, but it can get really, really complicated when you're, or even time consuming when you're trying to please every single network out there. So let me ask you a question about influencer marketing, since that's kind of your expertise. Do I pay an influencer to promote my brand? Do I partner and collab with an influencer? Or do I share some equity with an influencer? I'm sure you've been approached with all three of these. What's your insight on those for an approach when a company's trying to grow and maybe their resources are a little strapped?
Yeah, I actually talk about it a lot because like I'm approached by smaller brands and startups who might not necessarily have like 6 or 7 figure budgets to allocate to influencer marketing. So the way that I recommend approaching this space is you can start small. That's actually the space where it's fairly easy to start small. To answer your question, do you need to pay influencers? Mostly, yes. So just because, influencer is an individual, just like you and I, who has, certain amount of hours a week that they work, right? And they need to be compensated for their time. So if they take the time to get to know your brand, to test it out, to create some content around it, a common practice would be to compensate them for this time and effort that they put into working with your brand. However, there are different models of compensation. So, for example, there is like a very simple pay-per-play, like, you pay them a certain fixed rate per, post or whatever deliverables that you agree on. However, there are also affiliate programs, for example, where brands offer influencers only a certain percentage or a fixed rate per sale that the influencer generates for the brand. So this is basically like no risk for the brand at all. You just give the influencer access to your product or service. You stipulate the affiliate program terms, and you just got to equip them with the right tracking process, like to actually capture those orders, those sales that they generate for your business. So this can be a good starting point for those brands that maybe do not have huge budgets. Like try to find a few influencers that are very much relevant to your particular brand, approach them, explain to them why you think that they are special, like why you actually want to work with them. I think a lot of it comes down to really like building the relationship with a certain influencer. And actually, the smaller the brand, the better chance you have to like build a relationship, because large brands, they don't really build relationships with influencers. They operate at such a scale where they do not have enough resources to like properly attend to each individual influencer. While, if you're a smaller brand and you're going to be working with like 3 or 5 influencers, you can actually like take the time to get to know them and maybe talk to them, meet them. So you can definitely start small. You can find some smaller influencers. You can negotiate some affiliate terms with them, etc.
All right, so you went over some good things that we should do. We can use an affiliate program. You can start off with smaller brands to make some of these connections. But ultimately, every entrepreneur goes out and they make some mistakes. What are the don't do's when it comes to dealing with influencers? What are some of those warning signs we need to look out for? Because we don't want to pay somebody who's not going to get us the result that we're looking for. And I feel like there's a lot of risk out there. What should I be worried about when working with influencers?
Great question. Well, the first thing that I recommend to brands, don't approach influencers if your product or service is not 100% ready to be promoted yet. And this actually applies to any other marketing activity. Like sometimes, again, like I get approached by smaller startups who are like, oh, we need some publicity. Like right now, we need to do something. Like, oh, let's work with those influencers. But our product is in beta. Like, wait, what if the influencer, doesn't like your product? And if they are not as nice, you might actually end up with getting like a terrible review about your platform. So before you approach those influencers, make sure that, your product or service works properly, and then like your checkout process is smooth. Because let's say the influencer posts about your product, but like there is some bug with your checkout or whatever, and like you will end up with a lot of customers who are like, oh, I don't know, it didn't work, or like the promo code did not apply. So make sure that like your product, your checkout, like your distribution, all these things are functioning properly before you approach the influencer.
That's a biggie, though. I mean, can you imagine you get yourself all that credibility, or you get yourself that influencer to come out, and then they go through and people's promo codes don't work, or they can't check out. They're gonna go and fire back at that influencer, and there goes your relationship with that person. You could have had success if you just waited a little bit.
Right. Yeah, so that's like a huge no. Yeah, and then, when it comes to certain red flags, oh God, I've been in this industry for so long. I've seen it all, I think. Like by now, I seriously, like I've worked with influencers who are absolutely like sweethearts. They're so easy to work with. They actually like care about the success of your campaigns. And I also worked with influencers who are rude, arrogant, and absolutely terrible to communicate. This is probably like just 1%, but you need to know those red flags when you approach them, because eventually, if an influencer doesn't treat you right, doesn't treat your brand right, the results of your campaign might not be as great as you hoped. And, just like some of those red flags that I identified is when the influencer is like really, really transactional. And what I mean by that is like you approach them, you're like, hey, I run this brand. We're very interested in working with you, blah, blah, blah. And the influencer is like just giving you like, my rate is X dollars, without even asking you like, okay, what do you want? What sort of like collaboration are you looking for? How many publications, etc. Like without really talking to you, they're like, here are my rates. And to me, this is kind of a red flag, because it means that they don't really care what brand to promote. They don't want to take the time to get to know you. They don't really have much pride in what they are recommending to their audience. To them, it's like pure transactional. Like, I'm here to make money, quick, one-off partnership, next. So to me, this is a red flag. From my experience, the most successful campaigns are with those influencers who are actually like, okay, let me check out your brand. Let me test it. Let me, like, if it's a product, let me use the product, because like I'm going to be recommending it to my community. I want to make sure that I like it in the first place. So this is great. Like, this kind of people are the people that established good trust with their audience, and, working with them will be more like better for your brand than those guys who just advertise absolutely anything out there.
Yeah, you're figuring out which one's going to be the true brand ambassador versus somebody you're just paying an ad to, right? I mean, I think that's ultimately what the difference is when dealing with some of these people. Yuliya, I mean, that's a lot of great information that you've shared with us. Your expertise is definitely shown as I'm asking you these questions. If people want to reach out because maybe they're afraid to talk to influencers, maybe they don't know what's going on, maybe they can't identify some of these red flags and they want an expert to work with, how can they reach out to you? How can they get a hold of you?
I think the best way to connect with me would be through LinkedIn. It's Yuliya Gorenko on LinkedIn. I am open to, just chatting with you guys. Like, if you have any questions, like I'm very open to sharing my knowledge with people. I won't be like, oh, you need to pay me right away. Like, no, it's okay. Let's connect. I talk to a lot of brands. They approach me when they sometimes don't know where to start, like how to develop their influencer program. So I'm very approachable and would love to connect. Yeah. So the best way would be to just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Yuliya, and just in case you guys are listening, it is Yuliya is how you spell her name, Yuliya Gorenko, and that's with the G. That's how you can find her on social. Her website's also scrolling across the bottom. Mischka Agency is where you can go. Mischka.agency, no .com, just .agency. That's where you can find it. And Yuliya, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Influencer marketing is a thing. I mean, literally, it's pretty much what people are doing on TikTok. If you're scrolling through your feeds, that is influencer marketing on a smaller scale. And if you want to work with somebody who's been at this for over a decade, who knows the ins and outs and can help you identify those things, make sure you check out her website, Mischka.agency, or follow her on social at Yuliya Gorenko on LinkedIn. Yuliya, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.